The Labour manifesto is likely to be published next week. It follows a warm reception for Labour Deputy Leader Angela Rayner when she appeared last month at the UKREiiF property convention in Leeds. So what should we expect from the manifesto, and what will the property industry be looking out for? I'm David Thame, Analysis Editor at Place North. In today's Place podcast, we'll look at hopes and fears for the Labour manifesto. We'll also take a look at encouraging signs for Manchester's office market values and wonder if the digital bandwagon has run out of road. There's still a month to go. We've had just one leaders' TV debate and there's still everything to play for. Even so, the property industry and almost everyone else thinks they know the outcome of the 4th of July general election. The Labour manifesto is expected next week and the property section is likely to follow the outlines of the speech delivered by Deputy Leader Angela Rayner to the UKREiiF property convention in Leeds at the end of May. It was delivered just a day before Rishi Sunak called the election, and things have changed since, but it's still a good guide. So what can we expect? First, what did Angela say? The things to notice are the reintroduction of local housing targets. They were introduced by the 2010 to 15 coalition government and then removed by Michael Gove, and a commitment to, and this is a quote, build beautiful new settlements right across the UK, an idea inspired by the New Towns movement and garden suburbs like Hale in Manchester and Roundhay in Leeds. They're also aiming for 40% social and affordable housing and some new powers for city region mayors. Rayner said, and I'm quoting, "We'll give mayors the tools they need to deliver homes in their areas, revitalising brownfield first, unlocking ugly, disused grey belt land for house building and setting tough new conditions for releasing that land," Rayner said. There are also promises to end residential leasehold. What there wasn't, almost the most interesting of all, was any mention of rent controls. So what are the risks? Now she said, and I'm quoting again, "We'll end the medieval leasehold system with root and branch reform, and we will build the houses that the next generation so desperately needs." Now, she was saying more or less exactly what the outgoing Conservative Secretary of State, Michael Gove, said almost exactly a year earlier. Gove failed to get the leasehold abolition into law, and the experts I've spoken to reckon Rayner will fail too, and for the same reason. And for the record, that's not because it's a bad idea, and not because the dark forces of vested interests will bring her down, and not because there aren't viable alternatives. Commonhold is an option, and Scotland manages just fine with freehold alone. No, the nub of the problem is getting from leasehold to a new alternative without, in the meantime, causing mayhem. Labour have already stepped back from the idea of abolishing leasehold in the first 100 days, and the smart money says this may be an issue not even for this Parliament, but for a second Parliament. Any move to commonhold will require a thoughtful transition away from leasehold, says the British Property Federation, because millions of flats are on leases, and the challenge is taking that seriously. Get it wrong, and you risk devaluing leaseholds, hurting leaseholders' ability to sell or to get mortgages. It's going to be a delicate business moving from one system to another, they said. The consensus among my contacts is that the risk of dire unintended consequences is high enough to deter all but the bravest ministers. So new towns, Hale and Roundhay and beautiful new dwellings. There's a lot of wobble in the language here. Are there to be new towns or urban extensions or new settlements or what? The advantage of implying new towns rather than urban extensions is that urban extensions mean building on the green urban fringes of towns, which upsets swing voters. In contrast, new towns are always somewhere else, definitely not on your doorstep, and therefore a safer electoral bet. Supposing Rayner really did mean new towns, the idea isn't wildly popular. Everyone I spoke to is cool about the idea, because if the government is promising not to raise taxes and can't borrow much more, it can't offer much help to very expensive new town projects. And without it, nothing, nada, zilch, will happen. The prerequisite of any new town has been strong state leadership and funding, one source told me, and that's expensive. The dog that didn't bark is rent controls. This is an idea that's occasionally been promoted by big city mayors like Andy Burnham and Sadiq Khan. City mayors have good political reasons for positioning themselves at a distance from Keir Starmer, particularly if they harbour political ambition. And maybe that's what's going on here, in which case calls for rent controls are more about performance than about policy making. A lot of property people think that's what's going on. At least they hope that's what's going on, because it's not an idea they like. They don't like the rent control idea. They point out that whilst European residential markets often have rent controls, those markets make a poor comparison because they always operated on different principles to England and Wales. Look at those property markets that are closer to England's and you see less encouraging evidence. Google rent controls in Dublin, a couple of people told me. Also Google rent controls in Scotland. The worst kind of rent control would be the kind that allowed city region mayors to impose them in their patch, but left a donut of hinterland all around them uncontrolled. Boundary hopping could cause massive disruption. Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer Rachel Reeves has appeared to give this idea oxygen in the last few weeks, and that will alarm some property people. Everyone Subplot spoke to agreed that a vast increase in the supply of rent-controlled social housing was in fact a brilliant idea. And then they pointed out that the government used to build such things and they stopped building them and they should build them again. In the meantime, the government could change housing association funding rules to make much more cheap housing available, I was told. They have the power, why don't they use it, said one very irritated source. And the betting is that Labour will not, in fact, include rent controls in its manifesto. They rejected the idea as recently as last year. It's probably not going to happen. Is the property business being wishful? Will a new government with a huge mandate, perhaps, and 14 years of frustrations to work out of its system, find ways to achieve what others could not? Does the future have to be limited by the past? We may soon discover. We approached the Labour Party to talk about property policy, but unfortunately didn't hear back. But for now, if you want to gamble on the contents of the Labour manifesto, or to play Labour property policy bingo, it might be best to opt for the safe bets. And those are reforming the planning system and restore local authority housing targets. And now your regular rundown of what's going up and what's heading the other way in the Place North elevator. Doors closing, going up. Who says levelling up funding doesn't deliver? The Doncaster Town Deal Fund is behind plans for a 52,000 square foot office block next to Doncaster Station. Work on site is to start next year, the fund's local board and Doncaster City Council have announced. Wilmot Dixon are the contractors. The aim is to create a new specialist digital tech hub, hoping digital and tech companies decide Doncaster is the place to grow. Artificial intelligence, AI, got a prominent name check in the publicity. Doncaster has lots of upsides, and a station with a fast track to almost everywhere is definitely one of them. The trouble is that digital, tech, and AI is now a bandwagon so absolutely overloaded with everyone, it's hard to see it rolling anywhere. Sheffield has its digital campus, Halifax its digital skills hub, the list goes on. And it's been the go-to answer to the question, how will our economy survive? For years. In 2021, the projection was for 42,000 new Yorkshire digital jobs by next year. That sounds a lot, but remember there's 1.1 million people working in West Yorkshire alone. So in reality, it's fairly trivial. And even that gentle tide may be turning. One source suggests the volume of digital vacancies in Yorkshire is plunging, down 21% in the first 6 months of 2024. Maybe it's time to think of a new marketing angle? We all know that commercial office property values have taken a hit. The evidence begins to emerge that the bruise is getting a little less sensitive. This week, Viva Life and Pensions decided to offload the 55,400 square foot office block at 55 Spring Gardens, Manchester. The price tag is 15 million, which is way down on the 20.5 million Aviva paid CBRE investors in 2017, but not so far off what CBRE is understood to have paid in 2015. Swings and roundabouts, but in this case, fairly gentle. We've seen much heftier discounts in the last 2 years, and there's scope here for new owners to indulge in what's euphemistically called active asset management. Refurbishment would be a good idea, and the price reflects that. So whilst this looks like a hefty haircut, it may in reality be a sign that the market is looking up. That's it for today. We've taken a peek into the prospects for Labour's property manifesto, seen how office investment is beginning to recover its poise, and wondered if digital is still the magic word marketing people think it is. Subplot will be back on the 4th of July. In the meantime, for more about the built environment in the north, visit placenorth.co.uk. I'm David Thame, and thank you for listening.